I don't care how good Sir Dicky says the shot is. I was told 11 o'clock tea break for 250,000, and no, I can't squeeze in another 150,000.
Good evening, and the question is, who do you suppose drew that, and indeed read the caption? Well, it wasn't that well-known cartoonist Leonardo da Vinci, that's for sure. Actually, the artist is much more familiar as a film director, and if you'd like to know who he is, do stick around, because I shall be talking to him later on. I'll also be reviewing what Ingmar Bergman says is his last film, Fanny and Alexander. But to begin with, let's have a look at Tootsie, in which, as you probably know by now, Dustin Hoffman plays both the leading man and the leading lady. We meet him first as a man, an actor, who moonlights as part-time drama teacher and part-time waiter, as he tries to get himself established in New York, and a very difficult time he has of it too. "I'm a character actor," he cries in the teeth of yet another rebuff. "I can be older, younger, taller, shorter, different." But all to no avail. Hoffman, the actor, would find it easier to get arrested than to get a part. Not because he lacks talent, but because, as his agent Sidney Pollock informs him, nobody likes him very much on account of he's so difficult.
Okay, look, I sent you a play to read that my roommate wrote. It had a great part in it for me. Did you read it?
Where the hell do you come off sending me your roommate's play for you to star in? I'm your agent, not your mother. I'm not supposed to find plays for you to star in. I'm supposed to field offers, and that's what I do.
Field offers? Who told you that? The agent Ferry? That was a significant piece of work. I could have been terrific in that play.
Michael, nobody's going to do that play.
Why?
Because it's a downer, that's why. Because nobody wants to produce a play about a couple that moved back to Love Canal.
But that actually happened.
Who gives a shit? Nobody wants to pay $20 to watch people living next to chemical waste. They can see that in New Jersey.
Look, I don't want to argue about it, okay? I'm going to raise the $8,000 myself so I can produce his play, and I want you to send me up for anything. I don't care what it is. I will do dog commercials on television. I will do radio voiceovers.
Michael, I can't put you up for any of that.
Why not?
Because no one will hire you.
Oh, that's not true, man. I bust my ass to get a part right, and you know I do.
Yes, and you bust everybody else's ass, too. That's what you do. A guy's got 4 weeks to put on a play. You think he wants to sit and argue about whether or not Tolstoy can walk when he's dying, or walk when he's talking, or sing when he's
that
walking?
was 2 years ago, and that guy is an idiot.
They can't all be idiots, Michael. You argue with everybody. You've got one of the worst reputations in this town, Michael. Nobody will hire you.
Are you saying that nobody in New York will work with me?
Oh, no, that's too limited. Nobody in Hollywood wants to work with you either. I can't even send you up for a commercial. You played a tomato for 30 seconds. They went a half a day over schedule because you wouldn't sit down.
Yes, it wasn't logical.
You were a tomato! A tomato doesn't have logic. A tomato can't move.
That's what I said. So if he can't move, how's he gonna sit down, George? I was a stand-up tomato, a juicy, sexy beefsteak tomato. Nobody does vegetables like me. I did an evening of vegetables off Broadway. I did the best tomato, the best cucumber. I did an endive salad that knocked the critics on their ass.
Well, eventually, and in some desperation, Mr. Hoffman auditions for a TV soap opera as a woman, gets the job and becomes a celebrated actress. His flatmate, surveying the female disguise rather critically, says it works, but don't play hard to get. And indeed it does work. It's a measure of Mr. Hoffman's achievement that he becomes acceptable as a woman not only to the other people in the film, but also to the audience. Whereupon what is essentially a very funny comedy develops a good sharp edge, because as a man disguised as a woman, Mr. Hoffman, or as I suppose we should be calling him at this point, Hoff-person, is able to put the feminine point of view with masculine confidence and aggression. And when he threatens to knee Dabney Coleman as a male chauvinist pig of a TV director in the groin, or assaults a man who's tried to steal his taxi, the women in the audience tend to stand up and cheer. But along with all the social and sexual commentary, Tootsie is also a well-crafted comedy of errors. There's one splendid sequence of events in which Mr. Hoffman's girlfriend, Terry Garr, who knows him only as a man, thinks he's turned homosexual, Jessica Lange as an actress in the soap opera, who knows him only as a woman, thinks he's a lesbian, Charles Durning as Miss Lange's father wants to marry him, and George Gaines as an aging Lothario tries to rape him. You could, if you wish to quibble, claim that the film would benefit by a little judicious cutting in the middle, but you could probably say that of most movies. Generally speaking, Tootsie is enormous fun. The performances, especially that of the star, of whom you might say, if you had a taste for rotten puns, that he's Hoff-man, Hoff-woman, are splendid, with the best support coming from Sidney Pollock, who also directed the picture with great wit and deftness. So now let's see the distaff side of Dustin Hoffman in action.
Things have been so much better since you came to Southwest General. We're all so grateful to you.
For
your help and advice.
Well, I really think of you all as my daughters, and what kind of mother would I be if I didn't give my girls tips? It's tips.
I think you'll find you picked the wrong man to challenge, Miss Kimberly.
It was you who put... Look at me when I talk to you, Dr. Brewster. I don't trust a man who won't meet my eye. I don't trust it in a bank teller. I don't trust it in an insurance salesman. And I certainly don't trust it in a cheap surgeon. Now, it was you who provoked this confrontation, sir.
You're an incredibly insensitive woman, Miss Kimberly.
Stop thinking of me as a woman, Medford, and start thinking of me as a person. That's what Southwest General is made of. People.
Oh.
And have Nurse Charles see me immediately.
Okay, one, push in for a close-up.
Not too close.
Okay, hold it there, one. And cut it!
The title of the film, by the way, is a sly reference to the battle of the sexes, reflecting the fact that while men invariably address other men by their names, they're inclined to address women rather dismissively by all-purpose endearments such as darling or honey or tootsie. Still, on now to the Beastmaster, a farrago of mythological codswallop that filches from so many sources that you get quite dizzy trying to identify them all. It begins in some unidentified land at some unidentified time with a bunch of witches, presumably borrowed from a third-rate touring company of Macbeth, telling the nasty local high priest, Marx, who is approximately as sinister as Groucho and as funny as Carl, that a baby just about to be ripped untimely from his mother's womb will be his downfall. Naturally, Marx, played by Rip Torn, tries to kill the baby, but fails, and our hero duly grows up to be Mark Singer, an identikit California blonde, packed with muscle and close-set eyes, who looks as if he's just won a football scholarship to UCLA. He's known as the Beastmaster because he has a strange power over animals, and so, accompanied by an eagle, a panther, and a couple of chipmunks, he sets off to fulfill his destiny. This involves him in all manner of set-tos with bizarre creatures, a little light dalliance with Tanya Roberts of the red hair and the 38C Cup, and an alliance with John Amos, who spent 3 years trying to raise an army to fight Marx, and has succeeded, as far as I could tell, in recruiting one 12-year-old Puerto Rican boy. Well, of course, it's all great nonsense, but it grows on you like a benign wart, and in the end I found it rather agreeable nonsense. I think young audiences will too.
Make I look upon you with compassion again. Only the blood of this child can make I look upon you as his children again. I offer this humble sacrifice to you from your son.
Hell of a strong budgerigar there. Well, at this stage, let's return to the mystery cartoonist whom I referred to at the beginning of the programme, and not to mess around any longer, I'll tell you straight away that he is in fact Alan Parker, one of our very best film directors, who was responsible for such movies as Bugsy Malone, Midnight Express, Fame, Pink Floyd The Wall, and Shoot the Moon. Just lately, he's been taking a break from filmmaking while he contemplates his navel and decides what to do next. But in the meantime, he's been amusing himself by drawing cartoons for the film industry's trade paper Screen International, and sharp, spiky, outspoken cartoons they are too. Similar Parker sideswipes at the industry that's nurtured him will be used to illustrate a diary at the Cannes Film Festival next month. Anyway, he's here with me now. Alan, it's going to be surprising to a lot of people to see you in this guise as a cartoonist. How did all that start?
Well, I've been doing drawings of a sort, laughingly called cartoons, for years, just on letters to people, really. And then just the last couple of years, it's become sort of public, and you know, various magazines, film, always to do with film. I mean, I don't think I'm smart enough to do them on any other subject, but it's just grown from that, really. It allows me a voice, really, to say something and be rather sarcastic about some of the stupidities of our industry.
Well, there's often quite a bitter note in some of your cartoons. I suspect that reflects a certain amount of you too, doesn't it?
I'm afraid so, yeah. I don't know if bitter's a very nice quality to have, but I seem to have an abundance of it these days. I don't know, there's an edge to them, obviously. I mean, I don't do them just for a smile. I hope that they actually say something and make people think about, as I say, some of the silly parts of our business.
Well, let's have a look at some of the cartoons. We've got some here. Now, how about this one? This is very, very topical at the moment, isn't it? Read out the caption.
Soundtrack available on Polydor Records and Tapes, pirate video available from Tom in a Projection Box. This is because a great deal of the prints are stolen by people who actually are responsible for them, and often are their projectionists. This is because this one here is the draftsman's contract, which I loathe beyond all loathing. It's a film which I feel is extremely pretentious and had a great deal of wonderful critical response, which is quite unfounded. It says, I knoweth the draftsman's contract to be a pretentious load of old codswallop. You know it, everybody knoweth it, yet all are fearful of saying so, lest they appear a turnip head. I think that's tries to sum up some of my feelings towards that film.
OK, let's go on. Let's have a look at some more of these, because there's a whole cornucopia of cartoons. How about that one?
Yeah, surely not all critics are soothes, dwarfs and puffs. This is my wife consoling me, I suppose. It's my feelings towards the contingent of the critic corps.
I hope nothing personal is meant by that, Alan.
No, Barry, there's another category for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, thanks. I don't want to know about it now. But there's a whole sequence, of course, of critic ones. I mean, here's another one.
I suppose it sort of... it follows on for a lot of other things. It says, critics, no comment on art, however good, is as important as art itself, however bad. A. Parker. And then Alan Marshall, my producer, says, I still prefer the one where you called them a bunch of puffs.
Now, have you had much of a shellacking from critics in your time?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's par for the course. You know, you put your head on the block and they're ready to chop it off. I think that in this country, I've had a lot worse than I have in other countries where our films are shown. You know, our films are shown in most countries.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think you get a worse press here than you do elsewhere?
You speak worse than me.
I do, don't I? It's catchy.
I'm sorry, yeah. It's part of the English mentality, you know. They always put you down the moment you achieve any kind of success. I'm sure they'll do it with Richard Attenborough next week when they've forgotten about Dandy. Dandy, again. It's another fraud. I'm starting to speak as bad as you. Right.
OK, let's have a look at another cartoon. See if we can get this one right.
This one says, furthermore, we absolutely refute the allegations that we are masturbatory, elitist, pseudo-intellectual, or any way out of touch with the morons who go to the Odeon. This is a gentleman from the BFI Production Board, another organisation that I loathe beyond all loathing.
It seems to me, Alan, that you are likely to make quite a lot of enemies with cartoons like this. Does that bother you?
Not at all, no. I mean, certainly not amongst journalists and critics. I think they've had free rein for too long. It's about time we started to fight back, actually, as filmmakers. As far as the BFI are concerned, I think no. I mean, I'm allowed to say what I feel about the BFI as much as anybody, I think. And I think, you know, they have had a voice, and we've never had a voice before. And by we, I mean the people who actually make the films.
And also, of course, you are unlikely to go to the BFI wanting money anyway, so you're fairly well clear there. Well,
I don't think they should be making films at all. I think that they're far too important jobs to do from a point of view of education and cultural importance. Without being involved in production, they shouldn't be involved in production.
Right, well, let us not overlook in this discussion of Parker the cartoonist that you do make quite decent movies as well. But you haven't made one for some while. Now, you've been on a sabbatical, haven't you?
Well, I did Fame, Shoot the Moon and the Wall, back to back practically. There was only 1 week gap in between Shoot the Moon and the Wall, so I'd done enough, I think, rather too much in a short space of time, and you lose your appetite for getting up early in the morning and putting up with critics once you've finished it. So I decided to have a year off. We delivered The Wall for Cannes, in fact, last year. So and Cannes coming up soon, so it's a whole year's gap now, so now I've got no excuse. I should start again.
Well, at the moment, of course, you're very actively involved with the New Directors Guild, aren't you?
Yep.
On which point, I mean, with that and Gandhi and its 8 Oscars, how do you reckon the state of the industry in this country at the moment?
Well, I think we do have a good chance, actually, if we're sensible. I think that, you know, winning Oscars can get forgotten in a week or two's time. And everybody talks about it at the moment, but then it goes. I think that if the government are sensible and help us with the revision of the new ED plan, etc., and whether the city now actually realise that we're an industry that's worth investing in, there is a chance of a future. My only personal point, which has been in the cartoons, I mean, on a serious nature, is that too often, actually, in this country, the intellectual critics, praise a certain area of filmmaking which has no chance of getting worldwide distribution. And if what we want is to have films like Draftsman's Contract, which run in one cinema in New York or one cinema in Paris or whatever, fine. I don't believe that is a future, and I don't think that we dare ask the government for money, and certainly the city aren't going to be interested if we make those kind of films. So that's the reason I've spent this period of my time actually making sure that the kind of industry that we're capable of having in this country is the right kind of industry, one that isn't ashamed actually of of audiences going to see the films.
But it also depends, surely, on people like you staying here to make your films, because, I mean, most of your films recently have been making in America.
Yeah.
I remember we had a long chat about this in New York, and you said, oh, no, I'll only make the one film, Fame, in America.
Did I?
And back you went to make another 2 or 3. Now, it really does depend on people like you staying here to make the films, doesn't it?
It does, and which again, I mean, comes back to the cartoons and the points in the cartoon. I mean, I feel very strongly about that. I think we have a real chance, and as I say, I've put a lot of time into it at the moment, in making sure it's the right kind of industry. Otherwise, to be quite honest, if it goes the other way, if it goes in the direction of the draftsman's contract, I won't stay. I will go to America, and I think that deeply worries me, because I live here, always have done. I've gone on location to make films in America, and I want my children to grow up here. But if I see that my industry is taken over by that kind of pretentious pseudo-intellectual movie, then there's no place for me to be here. And I'll go. But I hope that actually the next few months, the next year, actually, are very encouraging and very optimistic times for the British film industry, and we have a real chance of cracking the world market.
Thank you very much, Alan Parker. I must say, though, that I hope the British film industry is big enough to encompass both the films you'd like to see and films like The Draftsman's Contract. Anyway, Alan Parker's cartoons provide us with this week's competition. Here's one of his drawings with the caption removed, and I invite you to provide a caption of your own. This competition, incidentally, is dedicated to all those people who keep complaining that the usual questions are too difficult and the clips go by too fast. So, entries on a postcard, please, by Friday to Film 83 competition, BBC Television Centre, London W12 8QT. And for the writer of the best and wittiest caption, there'll be cassettes of Rockies 1, 2 and 3, all the Rockies, plus the usual sweatshirt. Now, in last week's competition, you were asked to name 5 Charles Bronson movies, and they were House of Wax, White Buffalo, Run of the Arrow, Street Fighter, and Miss Sadie Thompson. The winner was Michael Carroll of Bradford. And so to Fanny and Alexander, which Ingmar Bergman claims will be his last film for the cinema. Henceforth, he's to concentrate, it says here, on the theatre, TV and opera. Well, we shall see. But if this is to be his last film, then he's certainly left us with a sumptuous treat. Fanny and Alexander is 3 hours and 8 minutes long, and not a second of it is wasted. It's a rich, marvellous tapestry of family life and changing fortunes in Sweden in the early part of this century. It begins at Christmas time in the home of the Ekdahl family, presided over by grandmother Gun Volgrain. Fanny and Alexander, Pernilla Alvin and Bertil Guva, are the children of the matriarch's son, Alan Edval, and daughter-in-law, Eva Freuling. The house itself is a place of wealth and warmth and rich, teeming life. One of the Ekdahl sons is a wastrel, another is a happy philanderer with an understanding and complacent wife. And the gusto with which Christmas is celebrated in this household is positively Dickensian.
Fröken Majse har väl ett litet besök på rummet ikväll. Va? Skål!
But after an hour or so of all this voluptuousness, Bergman changes gear and mood. Fanny and Alexander's father, owner of and bit-part player in the local theatre, dies while playing the ghost in Hamlet. He's later to reappear, drifting mournfully through the film as a ghost in his own right. But more to the point, the children's mother unwisely marries again, a new husband being a handsome but bigoted bishop, Jan Malmsjö, a cold-hearted man who hates and fears all the ways of the flesh. The contrast between the warmth and open-handedness of the children's previous home and the narrow-minded, frigid austerity of the bishop's palace is superbly pointed up. Now, I'm not going to tell you how this riveting tale is finally resolved, because I don't wish to deprive you of the pleasure of finding out for yourselves. All I will say, therefore, is that the story is seen sometimes from Alexander's point of view, though never, as a matter of fact, from Fanny's, sometimes from his mother's, and sometimes from that of Erland Yusufsson as a kindly Jewish merchant. And during the second part of the film, ghosts and magic and mystical things crop up, but all very matter-of-factly. The inspiration for the film lies in a quotation from Strindberg: "Anything can happen, anything is possible and likely." And taking that as his starting point, Bergman, who usually seems to adopt such a bleakly pessimistic view of life, provides us with a testament to the joy and richness of life. In this, he's most excellently aided and abetted by his cast and that superb cinematographer, Sven Nykvist. Fanny and Alexander is a feast of a film, the work of a master, and you really shouldn't miss it. However, here, by way of contrast to the first clip, are the children in their hated and hateful new home in the Bishop's Palace.
En grundregel i det här huset som ingen får bryta mot, inte ens du, kära Emily. Och det är respekten för de timliga gåvorna.
Jag tror att du har missförstått något mycket väsentligt, käraste Henrietta. Men jag föreslår att vi skjuter upp den här diskussionen till ett lägligare tillfälle.
Förlåt mig, kära Emilia. Jag glömmer mig, förlåt.
Du är säkert en mycket duktigare husmor. Jag tänker fråga dig till råds i allt.
Edvard har förmanat mig minst 100 gånger. Men det är inte så lätt, ska jag säga det. Det är inte så lätt att inse att man har blivit överflödig.
Det är bra nu, Henrietta.
Något som jag kanske får lov att berätta är att vi morgontid är här i huset. Så vi är vardag som söndag. 6:00 samlas vi till morgonbön i Edvards arbetsrum. Jag vill också nämna att vi bäddar våra sängar och städar våra rum själva. I det här huset härskar punktlighet, renlighet och ordning.
Bli inte förskräckta nu, barn små. Min dotter menar inte så illa som det kanske låter. I början tar vi allt från den skämtsamma sidan.
Jag förstår inte riktigt vad Blenda menar. Om avsikten är att införa någon sorts uppfostringsmetod.
Inte alls, kära lilla Emily, inte alls. Jag är övertygad om att barnen själva så småningom kommer underfund med hur roligt det är att uppfylla sina plikter med omsorg. Jag menar närmast att allt samman ska vara som en lek.
Jag tror inte att mina barn uppskattar den sortens lekar. Inte jag heller förresten.
Det får väl framtiden utvisa, min kära Emily.
And time does show, indeed it does. As a matter of interest, 2 Ingmar Bergman films are being released on video this month, Summer with Monica and Scenes from a Marriage, and both pictures are worth seeing. But I can't really say the same of Barbarossa. This is a western directed by the Australian Fred Skepsey and set in Texas and Mexico in 1878. Willie Nelson is Barbarossa, a renowned outlaw whose deeds are widely celebrated in legend and song. Most of these deeds concern a long-running feud he has with his Mexican wife's family, headed by Gilbert Rowland, who, for reasons too complicated to go into, are all intent on murdering him. You'd think they'd have given up by this time, because when the film begins, he already appears to have wiped out about 3 generations of these people. Still, the feud goes on, and Barbarossa teams up with Gary Busey as a farm boy, who is himself on the run from his own murderous in-laws after having accidentally killed his brother-in-law. Now, the whole thing stands or falls on the developing relationship between these 2 men, the grizzled but lovable old psychopath and the equally lovable but fat and dim-witted yokel. And as far as I'm concerned, this is where it fell, because I didn't give a damn what happened to either of them. Nor could I see what point, if any, the film was trying to make, except that the family feud had become a sort of deadly game which provided all concerned with their main impetus for living. Pity, really, because westerns are very unfashionable at present, and if Barbarossa had been better, it might have brought about a timely revival of the genre. Still, here's Willie Nelson introducing Gary Busey to a life of crime.
We ain't gonna go rob those poor old people, are we? Poor people. That's the way the rich travel around here.
Manos arriba. God damn it. Dame el dinero, viejo. Muy pronto. Pronto. Get their money, Carl. Get your money out. Muy pronto, viejo. Come on.
Tenemos más.
Get it, Carl.
Is that all you got?
Sí, señor, es todo lo que tenemos.
Is that all you got?
Sí, señor. Prométele.
That's all they got in the world.
Well, they got each other. Take it.
No, sir, I can't. I ain't gonna. Son of a bitch.
No, sir, I ain't gonna. What do you mean, no, sir, I ain't gonna?
I don't think it's right.
God damn it, boy, we are robbers. These people have probably got more gold than we could ever carry.
I think banks and trains is more in my line. Well, look at them.
Goddamn son of
Big... We don't need to be robbing these people.
Why don't you go on their goddamn mortgage while you're at it? And get Jesus to co-sign, all right?
I have a particular affection for Elstree Film Studios, not only because the first British talkie, Alfred Hitchcock's Blackmail, was made there, but also because it was while my father and mother were both working in the cutting rooms there that they got married. I can add no more to this bit of family history because I wasn't around at the time, and I have to say that Patricia Warren lamentably fails to record this momentous event in her illustrated history of the studios, Elstree, the British Hollywood. Nevertheless, Miss Warren's book is a welcome addition to film bibliography, though I'm not sure Elstree ever quite justified the title of the British Hollywood. It changed hands too often for that and never really developed a house style in the way Ealing did. But at the same time, it's always been a valued part of the British film industry and has always been aware of its own importance. In 1950, a documentary was made to record for posterity the history of the studio up to that point. It was called The Elstree Story and was narrated by Richard Todd.
All right, quiet, everybody. Settle down. Ronnie. 30, take 2. Action.
Mary, Victor's going to get us some Chanel gardenia. It'd be more to the point if he could get us a new nanny.
Oh, Mary, she isn't leaving. And I did everything I could to smooth her down.
Well, you didn't succeed.
I'm terribly sorry.
Yes, so am I.
Well, I suppose I'd better not go out now.
Nonsense, of course you must go.
Well, if you're sure it's all right.
Right, cut, thank you, that's fine. Now we'll have a close-shot here. Right, Adam.
There's no place quite like a film studio. No place where you're so completely in show business and yet have no audience to applaud, laugh, or maybe cry. No audience, that is, except the dictator with the all-discerning eye, the camera. We're its slave and it our master, be we clapper boy or actor. It's over 20 years since they first started making films here at Elstree. And since then, almost every leading director, writer, producer, and star in the industry has worked in this studio.
Of course, 1950 was a pretty good year for the movie business because there wasn't much television about in those days. Elstree, like all the other studios, has often fallen on harder times since, but at least it still keeps going, and long may it continue to do so. Star Wars and its multitudinous sequels were made there, and even now Barbara Streisand is completing post-production work on Yentl at Elstree, and Steven Spielberg is making his sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, the further adventures of Indiana Jones there. It's regrettable, perhaps, that it takes American production money to keep British studios going, but better American money than none at all is what I say. On which note, I shall leave you with the famous snake scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was also shot at Elstree. And anyway, it's a very good scene. So until next Monday night at 11:15, goodbye.
Take this. Wave at anything that slithers.
Oh, my God, it's so blazing slithering. Indy! Ow!
Jesus! Where'd you get this? From him?
I was trying to escape. No thanks to you.
How hard were you trying?
Well, where the hell were you?
Watch it, watch it.
What are you doing?
Fire!
How the hell are we going to get out of here?
I'm working on it, I'm working on it.
Well, whatever you're doing, do it faster. Where are you going?
Through that wall. Just get ready to run, whatever happens to me.
What do you mean by that?